The movie begins with a little girl, Abigail, dancing Swan Lake. She is a ballerina, so we see her performing on the stage of the theater. Meanwhile, a gang is gathering outside. The thugs are planning to kidnap the child for ransom. After the performance, young ballerina goes outside, where a luxury car with a private driver is waiting for her. The car is equipped with a beacon, so the kidnappers can follow her movements, and some of them wait for the child at her house. While the girl is on her way home, the kidnappers have already disabled the alarm system and broken into the house. The kidnappers hide in the nursery and wait for the child. They wait for her to go to room, talk to her mother on the phone, and then attack her. A needle in the neck ends all her attempts at resistance. At that moment, outside surveillance signals that someone is driving up to the house, possibly her father. The kidnappers manage to leave the house before the man enters. The alarm and the lights go on, but the bandits are out the gate, getting into the van and leaving the scene. One of the kidnappers is a young woman named Joey. She was initially against the kidnapping. When she found out that a child was involved, now she's monitoring Abigail's pulse and well-being. The van tries to leave town. It succeeds. They drive into the woods and take a deserted road to an old mansion, where the boss meets them on the porch. He orders them to find a comfortable room for the girl and an observation post for themselves. Only Joey can communicate with the child so that Abigail cannot hear the other voices. All phones are packed in a bag. The boss takes them with him. He should be back in 24 hours. Then the mission is over. The bandits only have to hold out for one day as nannies. In the evening, all the bandits gather at the bar. The driver tries to keep the conversation going. He looks at each of them and talks about their past. Joey assures him that he's literally wrong about everyone. When asked to describe each gang member, she unmistakably recognizes one as an ex-cop, another as a bouncer. She sees the girl as a hacker and the black man as a Marine. As for the driver, she is certain that the guy is not right in the head, most likely a sociopath. But the former detective hits back. He says that Joey is a former drug addict. Cops can smell junkies from a mile away. Joey goes to check on Abigail. The girl comes to her senses. She asks the girl to take off the blindfold. Joey complies and also removes the handcuffs from her wrists and puts them back on, but in front and not as tight. Joey answers the girl's questions. Joey explains that nothing will happen to her. She must do everything as she is told. Joey completely calms Abigail down, Pinky swearing that nothing will happen to the girl. Abigail asks the girl about her child, what he likes. She also claims that her father is unlikely to pay the ransom because he doesn't care about her. At the door, Abigail calls out to Joey. She says she is sorry for what is going to happen to her. The girl is scared, goes back to her friends and asks the former detective if he knows who the girl's father is. He claims he doesn't. Later, he goes into Abigail's room himself, but sees that the child is without a blindfold. He frantically covers his face with his collar and points the gun at the child, trying to find out if she has seen his face. Abigail cries, assuring him that she didn't have a chance to see anything. The cop asks the girl to tell him the name of her father. He is shocked when Abigail tells him the name, Christophe Lazar. The policeman is ready to leave everything behind and walk away. Joey stops him and asks him what happened. When he calls out the name of the girl's father, everyone realizes they're in for a hard hit. This is the most powerful and dangerous man in the world. The bouncer offers to kill the girl, but Joey is against it. The cop supports the bouncer because Abigail saw his face. In the end, they decide to pretend they don't know the father's name. 22 hours to go. They will watch the road, all the entrances and exits. Eventually, they'll get their money and go their separate ways. Joey's task is to keep an eye on the house inside. She goes room by room with the flashlight. Behind one of the doors, she sees a huge lobby and also hears some strange noises. As she approaches the Marine's room, she makes an agreement with the guy that they will back up each other. Meanwhile, the hacker girl is in her room. She gets very scared when she sees a human figure in a dark corner on the bed. It turns out to be a driver who just made a bad joke. He didn't mean to scare her, he just liked her, so he decided to keep chatting. However, the girl is angry with him. She kicks him out of the room, but the guy is not discouraged. He goes to the bouncer sleeping in the chair and draws on his face with a marker. Then he wanders around the house looking at the pictures. In one of them, he sees a girl. When he looks closer, he is surprised to see that the girl's face is very similar to the face of the kidnapped Abigail. Next, he goes down to the basement and into the kitchen. The man is looking at the contents of the refrigerator when the door behind his back slowly opens. The driver goes to check but finds no one, only a rat. As he turns away from the animal, he hears the crunching of small bones. He doesn't have time to notice anything. Someone knocks him, then drags him down the stairs and across the floor. With a wild cry for help, the man tries to cling to the railing with his hands, but something pulls him. A hacker girl hears a man screaming. She looks out into the hallway to investigate. As she goes down to the kitchen, she sees the driver sitting in a chair. After she touches the man's shoulder, his head comes off and falls into her hands. The bouncer comes running to her scream and sees a decapitated body and a girl leaning over a sink sink, spitting the contents of her stomach into it. The bouncer calls everyone. Everyone notices that this style of killing is very similar to the legend of the Valdez killer. This killer works for Lazar. He tears his victims to pieces. They rush to the nursery to check on the girl. The Marine decides to leave. Without listening to anyone, he heads for the exit, but behind the wooden doors are wrought iron gates that cannot be opened. After a moment, everyone sees that the windows and doors of the house are locked with iron shutters and bars. The whole house turns out to be a trap. Joey rushes to the girl. She asks the child if anyone other than her and the man with glasses, meaning the cop, came to see her. The girl suspects that Valdez is nearby, but Abigail says she didn't see anyone else. She later adds that the man with the glasses told her that he worked for her father and that his name was Valdez. Just then, Marine enters the room. He covers his face with his hand and calls out to Joey. He tells her that someone stole his sniper rifle from his room. Joey talks about what she learned from Abigail. Marine decides to take the cop, the other two stay with the girl. They split off in different directions, but a second later, Joey looks back and sees the guy fall with his face chewed off and his neck bitten off. Joey runs into the common room and takes aim at the hacker, the bouncer, and the cop. She tells the cop that the girl told her he was Valdez. The cop also points a gun at the girl and tries to explain that Abigail is very devious, that she is pitting them against each other, and that she needs to be dealt with. Nodding his head, he directs the bouncer to the nursery to kill the child. Joey runs after him and knocks the gun out of his hands at the last moment. Everyone gathers in the nursery. While the adults sort things out, the hacker sees the girl removing the handcuffs from her wrists. The girl screams, trying to get everyone's attention, and as everyone stares at Abigail, the girl opens a mouth full of fangs and lunges at the bouncer. Moments before she clings to his neck, a cop shoots her in the forehead. After a moment, however, Abigail comes to her senses and simply wipes the bullet from her forehead. She then throws herself back at the bandits. As she retreats to the door, Joey and the cop shoot her with a dozen bullets, then barely manage to slam the door and lock it. The monster on the other side starts growling and freaking out, trying to escape the room. Back in the lobby, the bandits begin to figure out what they know about vampires. They decide to make steaks out of pool cues and find garlic in the kitchen. Unlike Joey, the cop is determined to go back and kill the vampire. With steaks at the ready, the bandits unlock the door and break into the nursery, but the room is empty. Upstairs in the house, music is playing. Kidnappers see Abigail dancing on a small stage, holding the decapitated body of the driver as her partner. Hacker Girl attacks first, but Abigail has no problem taking the garlic from her, throwing it into the far corner of the room. When Bouncer attacks, she throws him to the floor and starts stabbing him in the chest with his cross. It's the cop's turn. Vampire simply snatches the steak from him and stabs him in the leg, piercing it through. Defeated bandits return downstairs. They realize that the monster did not kill them, as she prefers to play first. Their weapons did not work. Joey remembers that one thing worked on Abigail. When she was kidnapped, a shot in the neck put her to sleep, which means the only way to get the upper hand is to corner her and give her a shot. But there is only one syringe. The decision is made to split up. Whoever finds the vampire first calls Joey on the radio, who comes running over and gives the shot. Hacker Girl goes to the basement. She trips and falls into the pool. As she dives out, the girl begins to scream. The pool is filled with decomposing corpses. As she runs to the aid of her accomplices, she is met by Abigail. She attacks the bouncer, and when he falls down the stairs, she lunges at the cop. Joey tries to give her a shot, but the girl swats it away like a pesky fly. The syringe flies to the side, and the girl tries to grab it. Hacker tries to pull the vampire away from the cop, but Abigail sinks her teeth into her arm. At that moment, the bouncer comes to his senses, and with his entire weight of 264 pounds, throws himself at the child. He holds her back with his last ounce of strength and tells Joey to hurry. The girl finally grabs the syringe. She quickly injects the girl and she falls asleep. Everyone turns to the hacker. No one knows the consequences of being bitten by a vampire. Abigail is put in a cage, and when she comes to her senses, she begins to tell the whole truth about every member of the gang. The policeman worked for her father. He had several deaths on his conscience, and changing his name and city couldn't hide him from her. Hacker Girl stole money from her parents, then funds and organizations, and then she caught a really big fish. But you can't steal from Abigail's family. Bouncer, tired of beating people's brains out for money, he decided to get involved in history, but there's no turning back. Finally, Joey is a former military nurse who was kicked out of the army for drug use. One time the dose was so high that instead of removing the bullet from the wounded man, she damaged an artery and the man bled to death. He was a very special person to her father. Abigail tells them that their boss also works for her, that she's the one who brought them all together to teach them a lesson, and now she's promising to keep someone alive who'll let her out of the cage. Bouncer decides to take the chance to survive. He doesn't listen to his colleagues who claim that the vampire is cheating. Joey is forced to shoot the man in the side, and only then does he agree to give up his gun. Everyone goes upstairs to bandage the bouncer's wound. Abigail remains guarded by a cop. She invites him to take up her offer. The cop offers his option. First, she tells him how to get out of the house. Then he opens the cage. The girl talks about a secret door in the library. You just have to find the right book. But the cop, coming closer, asks the vampire if she really thought he would open the door. Abigail laughs, then with a sharp motion blows the door off its hinges. When Joey comes running to the noise, she sees the girl leaning over the cop, ready to claw at his neck. Joey begins to pry open the boards blocking the window opening. A ray of sunlight enters and falls on Abigail's hand. A second later, the hand explodes and the vampire herself jumps aside with a scream. Slowly, a new limb begins to grow from the stump, but no one waits for the end. Everyone runs to the library. Cop finds the same book, but nothing else. No secret door. The unfortunates are locked in the library. They realize that the vampire is waiting for night. Then they are all dead. Another plan? Find the power source and short it out. Maybe the doors and windows will open. Nobody wants to go with the hacker. Only the bouncer agrees, to whom the girl was immediately sympathetic. As long as she is not afraid of the sun and is reflected in the mirror, there is a good chance that nothing bad will happen to her. The hacker starts to hear some voices in her head. The bite on her arm heals before her eyes, and after a while, her gaze, fixed on the bouncer's back, changes. The man creeps forward, unaware that his friend in the back is no longer human. After a minute, she lunges at the man and kills him, then calls the others over the radio. When the cop and Joey see who called them, they run back to the library. The hacker runs after them. Standing near the piercing sunlight, Joey waits for the vampire to jump, and at the last moment raises a silver tray over his head. The reflected beam falls on the monster, and the vampire explodes. Moments later, a secret door in the wall opens, and the girl and the man enter. They find their boss. He is also a vampire. He offers the policeman immortality if he kills Abigail and her father, and then they will take over their kingdom. The cop agrees and the vampire bites him. When he is reborn as a monster, he kills the former boss. Just then, Abigail comes up behind him, and he rams into her throat, killing her as well. Meanwhile, Joey tries to find a way out. The monster catches up with her and throws her over the railing, but the girl is caught by Abigail. She begs for help in killing the convert, then she will let her go alive. Joey agrees. A fight breaks out. As a result, the ex-cop bites Joey and makes her his puppet, and then he orders her to take a stake and kill Abigail. But she tries to kill the monster herself, and Abigail helps her. When the stake goes through the ex-cop, he explodes. Joey says goodbye to Abigail, but her father arrives. Abigail has to try hard to convince her father not to eat the last survivor. Joey goes outside, gets into the van, and drives off.